look at two special right triangles. Okay, the first is a 45, 45, 90 triangle, which of course is talking about the angles inside the triangle. So if we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, that's talking about two 45 degrees and a 90-degree angle. So we have an isosceles right triangle because we have two congruent angles, we have two congruent sides. So the legs of this triangle are congruent. Notice in the picture, the legs are both marked as an X. Okay, so the legs are congruent. And that might be something to make sure to, oh, I didn't get my pen. That might be something to just make a note of so that you make sure that you know that. Okay, your legs are congruent in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And then a special property of the 45, 45, 90 triangle is that the hypotenuse is equal to square root of 2 times a leg. Okay, so you can multiply the leg by square root of 2 to get the hypotenuse, which is what's written down here. Hypotenuse equals square root of 2 times the leg. Here's another thing I would like you to think about. If the hypotenuse is square root of 2 times the leg, then think about trying to solve for the leg. The leg would be the hypotenuse divided by square root of 2. Okay, so the hypotenuse divided by square root of 2 will give you the length of the leg, depending on what you have to begin with. Our next type is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So again, this is referring to the angles. So when we have a right triangle that has 30 degrees and 60 degrees as the acute angles, then we have some special properties for that triangle. Okay, the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the shorter leg. The shorter leg is across from the 30-degree angle. Okay, so might be good to write down. Short leg is across from the 30-degree angle, and the longer leg is across from the 60-degree angle, which makes sense. Remember, with triangles, the biggest side is across from the biggest angle, and so these work as well as far as your legs. Your shortest leg is going to be across from the smaller angle, and then the longer leg is going to be across from the larger of the acute angles. Now, we have a couple of things written out to the side. I already talked about the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg. Another way to write this, depending on what you're solving for, is that the hypotenuse divided by 2 is equal to the short leg. Okay, that would just be going the other way, depending on which one you have given to you. Your second property is that the long leg equals square root of 3 times the short leg. So everything really depends on the short leg. You've got to have the short leg, or you've got to be able to get to the short leg in your triangle if it's 30, 60, 90. So let's think about rewriting that second one. Okay, the long leg is square root of 3 times the short leg. So if we divide by square root of 3, then the long leg divided by square root of 3 equals the short leg. Okay, so it really depends on what you have to begin with as to what you're going to have to do, how you're going to have to multiply or divide. So let's take a look at some examples. Okay, take a look at A. We want to find the value of the variables. Okay, we want to solve for X. And then later on, we have some other variables down below in C and D. But for A and B, we just have the variable X. So let's take a look. For part A, we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. We know that. We already have two sides marked congruent. Two of the legs are congruent. This is a 45, 45, 90. We want to find X, which is the hypotenuse. Now, remember what we said. We said that the hypotenuse equals square root of 2 times the leg in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So X equals square root of 2 times 3. Well, square root of 2 times 3 is simply 3 square roots of 2. And we're done. That's the hypotenuse. It's 3 square roots of 2. Now for part B, again, we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. It's not marked, but notice that the legs are marked congruent. They both have an X. So we know that these are both 45 degrees. So if we want to find X, which is a leg, we said that in order to get the leg, we would have to divide the hypotenuse by square root of 2. So we know that X should equal the hypotenuse, which is 5, divided by square root of 2. Now, remember, We don't like when we have a radical on the bottom of a fraction. We need to rationalize. So we're going to have to multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2, just like we did in our radicals unit. When we multiply on the top, we have 5 square roots of 2. On the bottom, square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2. So now we know that x is 5 square roots of 2 over 2. Take a look at C and D. This time we're dealing with 30, 60, 90 triangles. Okay, it may help you to label. So, for example, we know that this side 7 is across from the 30, so this is the short leg. T is across from 60, so that is the long leg, and then H, aptly named, is the hypotenuse. Okay, so let's think about what we have. We are given the short leg. That's what we need to find other things, so we already have it, so we can solve for either one first. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, we know that hypotenuse equals 2 times the short leg. So let's plug in what we know. We want to find hypotenuse, which is 8. And that's 2 times the short leg, which we know is 7. So we know that H is 14. Now let's talk about the long leg. Our property here, we know that the long leg equals square root of 3 times the short leg. So long leg is T, that's what we're solving for, equals square root of 3 times the short leg, which is 7. Okay, so T is simply 7 square root of 3. We solve for the 2 missing pieces in that triangle. Now take a look at part D. Part D, we have a little bit different situation. We still have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, but we have a different piece given to us. 5 is the leg given to us, and that is the long leg because it's across from the 60-degree angle. S is one we're solving for, and that is across from the 30, so that is the short leg. Okay, and then T is our hypotenuse. Okay, so let's solve for our variables. We have to solve for short leg first, okay, because that's the first one that we need in order to be able to find the hypotenuse. So let's think about what we said. We said that the short leg, over here, we said the long leg is square root of 3 times the short leg. So if we want to solve for the short leg, we've got to divide by square root of 3. So the short leg is the long leg divided by square root of 3. So S, which is the short leg, is the long leg, which is 5, divided by square root of 3. Now, remember, we don't like radicals on the bottom. So let's rationalize. Let's get rid of that square root on the bottom. Okay, 5 times square root of 3 is 5 square roots of 3. And then on the bottom, square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. So now we know that S is 5 square roots of 3 over 3. Now let's talk about finding our hypotenuse. It is 2 times the short leg. So T, which is our hypotenuse, which we're solving for, is 2 times 5 square roots of 3 over 3. Let's just simplify. Remember, 2 is like 2 over 1. A lot of times I'll see a mistake. People will multiply top and bottom by 2, but that's not correct. That would be 2 over 2, which is just 1. Okay, we're multiplying by 2, which is 2 over 1. So we just multiply the top. 2 times 5 gives us 10 square roots of 3, and we still have a 3 on the bottom. So T is 10 square roots of 3 over 3. All right, let's try some more. Okay, we're going to find the values of these variables. We could have a mix of any of the different types of special right triangles. So let's go through. For the first one, we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. We know the leg is 4, so the other leg is also 4. We want to solve for x. X is your hypotenuse. Remember, we said hypotenuse equals square root of 2 times the leg. Okay, so x equals square root of 2 times 4. And of course, that's just 4 square roots of 2. Okay. For B, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, I'll add in the 30. A is your short leg. B is your long leg. And then 4 is your hypotenuse. Okay, think about we were only given the hypotenuse. We got to solve for the short leg. So we know that the short leg equals the hypotenuse divided by 2. That's one of the things we wrote down. So A equals 4 divided by 2. So A equals 2. Okay, let's find B now, which is the long leg. We know that the long leg equals square root of 3 times the short leg. So B equals square root of 3 times A, which we said is 2. So B is simply 2 square roots of 3. All right, let's take a look at the next one. It is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. We are given the hypotenuse, which is 9, and then H and K are both legs, and we know that H and K are equal to each other. So we know that a leg equals the hypotenuse divided by square root of 2. So H or K, both, are equal to 9 divided by square root of 2. We got to rationalize, so let's multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2. That gives us 9 square roots of 2 over 2. So now we know that H, which is equal to K, is 9 square roots of 2 over 2. Okay? Now, let's move on down. We've got 3 more. We want to find the value of X and Y. Okay? We have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So we know that X is another leg. We already know that the legs are congruent, so we don't even have to really solve anything to find X. X has to be equal to 5. Now, Y is your hypotenuse. And remember what we said in 45, 45, 90 triangles, the hypotenuse equals square root of 2 times the leg. Right there. So we know that Y equals square root of 2 times 5. So Y is just 5 square roots of 2. All right, let's look at E. We have a 30, 60, 90. Again, if it helps you, you can label. D is your long leg, C is your short leg, and 10 is your hypotenuse, of course. We want to solve. We got to solve for the short leg first. We know that the short leg equals the hypotenuse divided by 2. So C, which is our short leg, equals the hypotenuse 10 divided by 2. So C is equal to 5. Now we need D, which is the long leg. We know that the long leg equals square root of 3 times the short leg. Well, long leg is D, square root of 3 times the short leg, which is 5. So D is just 5 square roots of 3. Last one, F. We are solving for sides A and B. We have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Remember, it can help if you label. 30 across from 30 is the short leg, so we know 12 is the short leg. B is the hypotenuse, and A is across from the 60 degrees, so that is your long leg. Okay, we've already got the short leg. Remember, hypotenuse equals 2 times the short leg, so B equals 2 times 12. So B equals 24. Then if we want the long leg, which is A, we know that the long leg equals square root of 3 times the short leg. So long leg is A, that's what we're solving for, square root of 3 times the short leg, which is 12. 12 times square root of 3 is just 12 square roots of 3. Guys, I think a lot of times people think these are harder than they actually are. We just have to remember a few of our properties from our radicals unit as far as rationalizing and being able to multiply sometimes, but for the most part, this should be pretty straightforward. The biggest thing is you just have to remember your rules. You have to make sure that you have your rules memorized for solving for the different sides. Okay, once you have your rules memorized, you should easily be able to set these up and solve for the missing pieces.